Testing. Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight and for this informational meeting. I thought I'd start with a passage from Deuteronomy 15. It says, "If when you arrive in the land the Lord will give you, there are any among you who are poor, you must not shut your heart or hand to them. You must lend to them as much as they need. Beware, don't refuse a loan, because a year of debt of cancellation is close at hand. If you refuse to make the loan, and the needy man cries out to the Lord, it will be counted as a sin against you. You must lend to him what he needs." When God knows us so well, he says, "And don't moan about it either. For the Lord will prosper you in everything you do. There will always be some among you who are poor. That is why this commandment is necessary. You must lend to them liberally." And that's why we're here. Hey, let's open with prayer. Father, we thank you that you are the father to the fatherless. You are the husbands to the widows. You are the caretaker, the one that brings justice to the strangers and the foreigners among us. And so, Lord, I pray that as we talk about this tonight, if you'd want us to be a part of this, that you'd stir our hearts, that we'd know, Lord, that we've been led by your Spirit to come alongside this project, if you want us to do that. So guide our words, our thoughts, our conversations tonight, Lord, that you'd be honored and glorified through this time. And we pray this in Jesus' name, and all of God's people said, Amen. Hey, I want to introduce Kenny and Donna. Connie and Denny Stichter, and God really put it on their heart some time back to see if we as a fellowship would want to be involved in supporting a family from Afghanistan through Samaritans Purse. Is that pretty accurate? And so it started with them, and we've often said, God usually, almost always, gives vision to one person. And when it's God's vision, that vision spreads. And you all being here tonight are a part of that vision creep. And so Denny and Connie, if you want to come up and just share your heart, and thanks.
Well, thank you all for coming out. It's really neat to see the size group that has come. I thought it would be interesting to give a little bit of history with Samaritans Purse. Many of you probably know all about Samaritans Purse. Some of you may not have ever heard of them. But anyway, Samaritans Purse is affiliated with Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. And it was started by Bob Pierce in 1970. And in 73, Franklin Graham became interested while being mentored by Bob. Franklin became CEO of Samaritans Purse in the late 70s. It has grown tremendously over the 52 years of operation, with medical missions, disaster relief, refugee assistance going on around the world. They're well known for the Operation Christmas Shoebox program. Almost 10 years ago, I felt a desire and calling to work with Samaritans Purse and signed up to drive trucks and operate heavy equipment for disaster relief. That sign-up put us on the contact list, and Connie and I have been kept abreast of needs and work of the organization. About 4 years ago, we visited the warehouse and logistics center in North Wilkes-Barre, North Carolina. We saw their shoebox and medical mission supply area, along with the mobile medical tents, and that experience deepened our interest in Samaritans Purse and what they do around the world. Recently, we received an email from Samaritans Purse requesting churches to sponsor Afghan refugee families for resettlement. While reading about the situation, I thought about how I would feel if I were in an unfamiliar country and culture, about how I would want to take care of my family, and how much I would appreciate anyone going out of their way to help. And I thought, CC Leb, you guys have a lot of resources. The gifts of the people, the pantry, discipleship programs, a lot of other programs going on. And God placed it on my heart to take this to the pastors and see if there was any interest. There was interest, and Connie and I were asked to contact Samaritans Purse to gather the information regarding what all is involved and how to prepare. As we gathered the info, it became apparent that we were not the people to lead the project, but to help launch and support the program. When we presented the information to the pastors, we became aware of Sheri Miller's interest in and passion for the project and her willingness to lead the project. Tom often says, the miracle is in the timing. It's awesome to see how God is bringing it all together. And here we are, and here's Sheri.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, as they've introduced, I'm Sheri Miller, but pretty much otherwise known as Dwayne's wife, or more importantly, Daniel's mom. So those are really my two names. However, this evening I am the church liaison and church sponsor for the Afghan Resettlement program through Samaritans Purse. And just to start off with all this information, instead of hearing my voice, we're going to show a video from Samaritans Purse regarding the plight of those in Afghanistan. That is still currently happening, but many of those people have gotten out, but we're still looking at this today.
Well, some months ago, as we all know, the Taliban took over control of Afghanistan, and in the process of that, many Afghans had to leave the country for safety, fearing for their lives, and quite a few of the evacuees that I've met said that that process was very sudden. It was like a phone call, get to the airport right now, drop whatever you're doing, Taliban are at the gates, you need to leave now.
People have been through a trauma, and most of the people are still in Afghanistan. Like, everyone is not evacuated. Taliban are doing whatever they want. People are starving, are dying, are being murdered.
When Samaritans Purse saw the Afghanistan evacuees coming to America, housed at U.S. military bases, we knew we needed to get involved in resettlement. And we knew that the answer to this would be the church in America. So we've come alongside them to train them, assist, empower, educate, to do everything we can to see the church succeed in welcoming these Afghans into their communities.
What happened in Afghanistan just broke my heart. We jumped at the chance to be a part of the resettlement program. Samaritans Purse made a way for us to do that which our hearts were crying to do anyhow.
So the first time that I heard about the opportunity to come alongside Samaritans Purse was through an email that was sent out to, I believe, the entire church, just letting us know that there would be families coming to our town that were leaving Afghanistan, that there would be needs associated with that. And I was all in. When they first arrived, they needed a home. They needed food. They needed clothes that were appropriate for winters. They needed everything.
I'm very thankful to Samaritans Purse, who provided this opportunity to us. Alliance helped us a lot. If we need transportation, shopping, anything, they helped my son to be enrolled in school. Rented a house for us. They actually invited us to their homes for a meal.
I can't imagine what this family is going through. Having to leave their country and leave everything. And so I think anyone who has the love of Christ in them would be compelled to help.
It is very difficult for everyone who leaves his or her country. It is kind of unwanted immigration. Some crises make opportunities. So I think for those people who are here, so this may be opportunity.
I'm just really grateful to have the opportunity to get to know them. It's given me a heart for all of the people there. And just, it's really shown me how many people need Jesus.
Pastors, churches, I would say to you, be involved. Our people are eager to give monetarily, materially, of themselves, and it has helped our church to turn outward.
Well, just like the parable of the Good Samaritan in the Bible, we encourage you to help your neighbors that are here from Afghanistan. You'll have impact for eternity through this program.
I have the privilege of inviting you, a loving body of believers, into a new territory, a new possibility of living out that love that is so evident in this congregation. As a church, we are called to not only pray for the poor and the widows, the fatherless and the lost, but we are also to seek them out and to rescue those in desperate circumstances. For many here this evening or watching this evening, seeking and serving the lost is limited to your immediate community. Because quite simply, we can't all be overseas missionaries. Someone has to stay here and restock that toilet paper. And someone must stay to seek and serve our neighbors, whether they've been here for 200 years or whether they've been here for 200 hours. We believe that God has opened a door that literally brings overseas missions to our front door. As many of you already know, people all over the world are seeking safety and refuge from their home countries. Some of them leaving with only the clothes they were wearing so they can make it through whatever terrain they had to get through to get to safety. As these refugees close the doors of their homes, possibly for the last time, God has opened a door for these same families to establish new homes where safety and security are part of the culture. So, how do we do that? And that is why you're here. So, not yet. So, just to give a little bit more information of how this all even gets started. So the first thing we do is we become a sponsored church. This means we take primary responsibility for welcoming refugees and helping them establish new homes and integrate well into the new community. We work closely with Samaritans Purse to help us through this process. They've done this a long time and they really know what they're doing. My role as church sponsor and liaison is to stay closely connected to Samaritans Purse to gain pertinent information that will ultimately help all of us provide the family with what they need and to establish a new life here in the States. I will stay up to date as information changes, and my role is also to support the core teams. And as you know, life is changing rapidly, and circumstances are changing rapidly. And so we are, as a church, I believe that we are equipped to roll with it. And we are just going to wait patiently for God's hand to lead in all that we do and whatever comes next in this adventure. We will develop core teams that will commit to actively participate in this process and will be the key contacts for other volunteers. These core team leaders will be the backbone of this process. We also commit to 90 days of critical support as the family becomes acclimated to their new environment. Samaritans Purse has asked that we commit to those critical days, which are the first 90 days, and then after that, they would highly recommend that we stay closely connected to that family for another 6 months, or as long as the family welcomes us into their lives as well. And hopefully this would not be that we at 90 days kind of say, okay, now we're all done, but this would be an ongoing relationship with the new family, or maybe families, you never know. The church and its volunteers will be prepared to give 10 to 40 hours a week in total. So that means if you might be doing 15 minutes of volunteering over here, but somebody else might be doing 2 hours and somebody else might be doing 4. But altogether in a week, that will be somewhere between 10 and 40 hours to help with various things throughout the week. This will decrease as the family begins to function more independently and they themselves gain more resources in the community. So here is the timeline, and I just want to say that we will have a question and answer section at the end of this. So as we're going through, if you have questions, please write them down, because every question is going to be important, and I definitely want to make sure we answer them to the best of our ability. Okay, so the timeline. This is the timeline, and this is based on Samaritans Purse and their wisdom. They've done this again. They've done this many times over, so I think they know what they're doing. And so we're just going to follow their wisdom. So the first thing is we need to develop a core team of leaders, which is partly why you're here. Is we're looking for those volunteers to kind of step in here and there, but we're also looking for a team of leaders to lead specific areas. And so that's the first thing that we need to do. Once we have that, then the church, then our step 2, the church will then submit an application to Samaritans Purse, where they will review it, and then they're going to schedule an interview with me and with the core team leaders and our pastors as well, and whoever it is that they need. And and what they'll be doing will be participating in this what's called a readiness interview. And they want to determine if we're truly ready to welcome a refugee family. Good intentions do not equal a readiness. So I think this is really wise for Samaritans Purse. I think they know that you have to be ready, not just willing. You have to have both. The next step would be to complete background checks for all core team leaders. So if you're interested, if you think, oh, you know what, I do have this time available, you will be required to hand in a background check. And anyone who will be in close contact with the family. And we'll get to this a little bit later. Step 5, the core team and certain volunteers will complete online modular trainings. This is part of Samaritans Purse requirements. And at that time, we will also be making pre-arrival arrangements and preparations. So before the family gets here, we will already be calling the school district, and we'll be making contacts with medical professionals, and we'll be checking out the best places to get food that makes sense to their culture. And all of those pieces are so much more. But we'll be doing all of that before they come, so that when they arrive, we're not wondering, oh gosh, how are they going to get here or there? So we'll be making those arrangements early. And researching what's out there and establishing those plans. Step 6, the church will welcome the family with the support of Samaritans Purse. That's, as you can see, it's kind of down on the timeline, but that just shows how much needs to go in before a family can arrive. And then our step 7 is just our ongoing mission to maintain support and then submit documentation of our support to Samaritans Purse. That is part of their requirement as well, and I will be handling all of that, but we need to show them that we are doing what we said we're going to do. So this is our designated timeline. So now we're going to look at how we will welcome the family. Like, how does this happen exactly? All right, so this is the core team organizational chart. Samaritans Purse developed this. However, I tweaked it a little bit. I added an additional core team. I think that our church can do it, and it alleviates some of the responsibilities that might fall otherwise into another category and add more work. So we're gonna shoot for 7. That's our goal, and again, I think I said this earlier. This is the backbone of the process. You know, these leaders, and then of course their volunteers, and each team leader. Each team will have a leader who then organizes, plans, and implements the goals of the specific need. And that's super important. So if you can imagine that the hierarchy is pretty simple. You've got your core team leader, volunteers. That's kind of how it works. And then everything kind of gets funneled through the core team leader, and then the core team will meet together, and we will work as a group. So that first, you'll see up there, it says church sponsor leader. That's me right now, and I am the lead for this team, and I'll be working directly with Samaritans Purse and overseeing the entirety of the process. There's the administration and recruitment lead. So the team itself will work closely with the church sponsor. They'll work closely with me as they begin to oversee the core teams, making sure the leaders and volunteers are supported, that they have enough volunteers, and that they are well resourced. The last thing that we want is for somebody to not have resources. So we are going to do all that we can to make sure that there are lots of resources out there. They will plan meetings, trainings, and oversee any paperwork that needs to be handed in to the church sponsor. So this is the people working in volunteering in administration and recruitment won't necessarily be hands-on with the family. So just kind of be thinking that these are people who really like paperwork, and they like making phone calls and contacts and getting people and rallying people, supporting, cheering people on, but you're not necessarily going to be hands-on with the family. So that may or may not influence your decision to be part of that team. We have kind of dipping down to housing and transportation. This team is responsible for finding and securing housing and transportation for the family. They will also be responsible for furnishing the home so the family has all the necessary items for daily living. So beds, linens, clothing, food, utensils. If you need it in your home, they probably need it in theirs. Transportation will depend on the level of experience each family comes with driving. You will be researching public transportation at many levels, while also thinking ahead about how to locate a car if this is appropriate and necessary in the future. So moving to health and cultural adjustment, excuse me. Medical and mental health care will be essential to these families, absolutely essential. We may not receive a mother that is expecting, but it is not uncommon. And so medical and mental health will be one of those first things that we need to make sure we're getting them connected. Whatever has happened, the trauma that they're coming with, the little ones, I mean, it's just, there's a lot. So this team is working on locating medical and mental health resources that will accept refugees and treat them well. They will be helping them apply for medical assistance. However, our community does have avenues for free medical and mental health care if needed. So just be looking for your resources. Additionally, the cultural adjustment will also be essential to these families. If you have ever lived overseas, even for a short time, you will understand the value of having people help you to adjust to a new culture. Culture shock is a real thing, and we want to be sensitive and respectful in how we help them acclimate. Okay, so jobs and finance. Adults coming from Afghanistan have already applied for an EAD, which is Employment Authorization Document. And it means that they have been authorized to work in the United States. They are legally here, and they are legally allowed to work in the United States. What it doesn't translate is if they were, let's say they were a physician in Afghanistan, unfortunately, that will not translate over here. So we will, there are some things that will and some things that won't. We'll need to keep our ears and eyes open and looking and searching and researching so that we understand how to get people plugged into appropriate jobs that make sense for their skills. And this team will also help the family apply for benefits such as SNAP and refugee benefits. They'll have to do the research on that so they understand how to do it and where. They will be integral to showing this family the United States banking system and helping them create accounts and manage U.S. money. All right, moving over to education and technology. This team will be responsible for reaching out to the local school district where the family will reside. So you don't need to reach out to districts where, you don't need to reach out to all 6 in Lebanon County, just the one where they're going to be residing. And Lebanon is no stranger to receiving families in need of refuge. So I think you will find many friendly faces and open doors in the education world. This team will also be helping to assess the educational and mental health needs of children under 5 and the adults in the home. So you'll be looking for, do the children need early intervention? Do the adults, would they benefit from some courses at HAC, especially if they're already highly educated? They may only need a few extra courses to then get them to that next place and status in the United States for whatever job that they're hoping to do. And then the technology. So those who understand technology and how it all fits into life, we certainly encourage you to come and help as well. And you would be, your job would be helping them make sure they have appropriate phones and computer systems and whatever it is that they might need to adequately help their children with education and to get jobs and all of those pieces, and of course communicating. So legal and translation, I think that's the last one that we haven't hit yet. This team should include an attorney or a paralegal or somebody who understands the legal system to help with the legal documentation as part of moving into a new country. For those of you who are immigrants or who've worked with immigrants, or you're here just for a time, you know that documentation is not a one-time thing. You don't come and just, you do your initial documents and then you have nothing left to do. It's ongoing. When you're new to the country, this is ongoing documentation, and so somebody who is familiar with that would be exceptionally helpful. We also hope to have individuals who either know Dari or Pashto or can help with finding good translation apps. They're out there, and so we just need somebody who has that passion for that. And anyone familiar with ESL is greatly needed. And you do not need to be formally trained to do English as a second language, ESL. We will help you. There are people in this congregation that do ESL, and they do it well, and they can certainly help you in that process. Okay, I literally have on my sheet breathe right here, so breathe. Okay, so that's the bare minimum summary of expectations for each team. However, under every team up here, there are so many other pieces and so many other ways to get involved that aren't mentioned. So if you find this piece of paper and you have this just gives you a little bit more of an idea of some of the possibilities in each team. This is not an exhaustive list, so there will be things that are missing from here. We just only had so much room. So, but that just kind of just spark your, those ideas, the light bulb going on in certain areas of, oh, maybe I could offer this, or maybe I can do that. Okay, so the first thing of our timeline is core team leaders, and we need you. Bottom line, we need you. But we also will be looking for specific characteristics of a team leader, and so this is where we're at. So characteristics of core team leaders. All right. So communicates well and quickly with others. We are not an emergency church. So so just kind of put that out there. When I say communicates well and quickly with others, what I mean is in a timely manner. Okay, so if you one important thing is that the whole church is going to have to be pretty flexible, and we're going to have to be quick to change and quick to communicate, because things can happen quickly. So if we have the family and they are suddenly without food for some reason, they're without food, we need to be available to make sure that they can get some food. And so a core team leader needs to be readily available to help with some of those situations that might arise, and there could be a multitude of things that could arise in a quick manner. We are not, again, we can't be 24/7 on call, but we certainly can be quick to get back to the family and back to one another, so that things are taken care of, and we are serving them well. We also need a core team leader to be good with deadlines and follow through. So if you are an idea person and you're like, oh, I'd love to be a core team leader, I have all these ideas, but you don't have good follow through, I'm gonna say, make sure that you keep those ideas, keep giving our ideas, but maybe a team leader isn't necessarily where you're going to fall. We definitely need to have that follow through, but we can't have follow through without the idea people. So if that's not you, that's okay. Just being self-aware enough to know whether this is a good thing for you, if you're good with deadlines and follow through. And if you don't know, ask your spouse or your children, and they'll tell you. Somebody who manages time and resources and people well, you kind of have to like people. So just be thinking about that. If you're not really like you don't really like to work in teams too much, maybe a team leader really isn't your thing, but if you do, and you love to manage your time and your resources and people, yay, we want you. You need to be flexible and open to change. A family coming from another culture, they are not going to understand us and what we do and why we do it automatically. It's going to take time, and we, in turn, will have to do that for them. We are going to have to be very flexible, and we are going to have to be open to changing very quickly as the needs change. And so a core team leader will have to be open to maybe this idea or the way that we were going to do something really isn't working, and maybe it actually turned out to be offensive to the family. The team leader needs to not take that offense and be able to say, that's okay, we will change it, and we're going to work through this, and we're going to make this work for the family. A core team leader also has to have the time to invest. And this is really important. And I know there are so many people that would love to be able to invest this kind of time, like the 5 to 10 hours a week in the beginning, but they simply don't have it. And that's okay. That there's so many opportunities to volunteer that's okay. We will find these individuals. But I want you to know that there is a time investment. And so that's something to really consider. Those are the things we want from core team leaders, but here are the requirements. The requirements are background checks that I said earlier. That is a must, and that will be handed in when we hand in the application. You must complete the training modules through Samaritans Purse, and that will be online, and that will be scheduled at hopefully your convenience, but that's still some unknown on how that happens, but we'll make that happen. And then there's a 90-day commitment to helping the family resettle. So that's the requirements of core team leader. Okay, so helpers, those that are going to be under the leader of said team. So flexible and willing to learn from the family as they learn from you. We're here to learn. We are here to walk. If we enter into their home, we are walking into their home, not the home that the church found for them. Okay, this is their space, their home, and we need to be walking in with an open mind, with the ability to know that this space is now their space, and be respectful of it, and learn from them. Learn, what are they telling us? What do they need from us? We also need to be able to communicate with the team leader your availability and skills. And it's really important that you are able to communicate with your team leader. I can't state how important that is, because they're really going to be relying on you. And if you're not great at communicating, that's okay. We still love you, and just have somebody else do it for you. So, like, if you really struggle with communication, but your spouse knows that, and they're like, "That's okay. I will help you with that." Great, lovely. Just make sure that somebody is communicating. We also want you to help in the areas where you're most knowledgeable. So if you want to like, oh, I'd love to learn how to do, how to get benefits, and how to do all of that work so I can help another family. Well, this really isn't the time to be learning those things. So if you already have a knowledge in another area and a skill in another area, where let's stick with that. This church is vast and wide in who is available and the skills. It's just amazing. And so I just ask that you stick with where you're knowledgeable, and do that learning of the other stuff. Do that another time, and we will cheer you on. And then be able to work under a team leader. So we definitely need this to be cohesive and everybody working together. Requirements of helpers. Background checks are preferred, but if you are not specifically working with the family, then that is optional. So sometimes there will be people that are just doing researches and phone calls and things like that. But anybody that's working with the family will be required to have a background check. Okay, so let me, before you. Okay, So we will get to the Q&A in just a minute. I want to tell you what we know and what we don't know, because there are things that we just don't know yet. But let me start with the things we do know. We know that financial assistance is available to the families. Each family is receiving, I believe, $22,275 per person, and that can be used. That's to be used for resettlement. However, what we are learning is that some of these families have already been resettled into hotels, and they have to use that money in hotels. So we don't know with what finances they will be coming, if much at all. But our church is prepared, and that is an area that if you're thinking, I don't think that I can actually put forth time to be present, but you have the financial resources, we will definitely put that towards this family because there will be a need. And so that, but we know that there are funds, we just don't know what will be coming with them. We do know that the families are here legally in the United States. We know that some families are familiar with English, while others may not have any English at all. We know that if this goes well, we might be asked to take on more families, so that would be pretty cool. We know that we serve a mighty, loving, and wise God, and He will use our willingness and readiness when the time is right for all involved. We know that connections to resources inside and outside of the church will be our greatest resource and our greatest testimony outside of prayer and humility. As we reach out to the community for resources, it is a beautiful way to show those around us the love of Christ. We also know that openness to change and differences will be key to helping this family transition well. What we don't know how many there will be in a family. There could be 12, there could be 2, or there could be anywhere in between, or maybe there's more. We just simply don't know. Families aren't necessarily always parents and children. It can be grandparents, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews. We just don't know what the overall family system will look like. We don't know if there will be children, but most likely there will be. We don't know from where they will be coming in the United States. They could be coming from any one of 8 bases or near 8 bases. We do not know what their faith will be. There are Christian Afghans and there are Muslim Afghans, and then there are those of other faiths, and we do not know of what faith that they will be coming. And we do not know when that will happen. And that's the kind of thing that I think that makes me a little nervous, is the when. I like to know when things are going to happen. And this is, I think, just a time for me to grow for sure in just that waiting. And we'll just stay committed to doing what we've been asked to do and follow the timeline, and God will put everything in place for us. Okay. We are now open to questions and answers. Questions, I don't know about the answers, but definitely the questions. Any questions? And take your time. I'm going to grab my water.
I just wondered if you have any idea when the families might come, a year, 2 years, 2 months?
I'm sorry, where is that question?
Oh, here.
Oh, way back there. Okay. That is what we've been trying to get that answer, like even just some sort of time frame, but we have not received an answer to that question. I know that there are churches that once they finished their application and they followed the timeline and they did their training. The families came pretty quickly, very quickly, but that doesn't mean that will happen for us. So I don't know.
And
Yeah.
will we, as a church, help them find a house, an apartment, or will they already have that set up?
Yes, we will be, that is part of our responsibility. So the housing, let me go back to that core team too. Maybe that would be helpful. The chart. Okay, so yes, the housing and transportation team, they will be securing housing for the family. And that will be already set up, and that'll be part of our readiness interview, I would imagine, that we have access to housing, and in whatever that means, whether that's renting an apartment or somebody provides some housing. It has to be appropriate to the family, of course, but yes, we will be asked to do that. Great questions. Yes.
I was wondering if they'll come as one family first and then wait, or
Right, kind of like one at a
multiple
time.
families at one time, or just one?
My understanding is that we would receive one family, and then see. I think Samaritans Purse will want to evaluate that and observe and make sure that we are able to do this well. And if so, that possibility of receiving another family is out there. There's one church that has received 4 families so far, but one at a time. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know how to ask this, but would they be coming to church, or do we leave that up to them? How does...
That's a great question. So the family, we will need to honor and respect the family's faith. We will need to honor and respect their schedules and their willingness and openness to coming. We can certainly invite them, but there is no expectation that they come. This isn't, and this isn't not at all what you're asking, but I'm glad that you mentioned it. This is, I want to be really clear that this is not a quid pro quo. This isn't we do this for you, so therefore you come to church. There's no expectation for this family to come, and we're just here to love them and to provide for them and show them the love of Christ, and I think that's our main mission and main goal. Am I missing anything, Denny or Tom? Connie? Okay. Thank you.
Is there an estimated amount of time to get through the process of the leaders and the training and all that to be ready to accept the family?
I don't have the answer to that question. That is something that I'm hoping to find out very soon. I know I did read that there are 10 training modules, but I don't know how long each module is. I don't know if you do it all in one day or if you do it over 2 weeks. I'm not totally sure, but that is an excellent question. And I am, I'm awaiting that response, and I will write that down again. Okay. Next question. Thank you for asking. Yes.
Will you get any type of heads up, like how much time will the church have before we know the family, so the church can be prepared for like the size housing, how many, we're going to need transportation, somebody's going to need a big enough vehicle to transport them. You can't really line things up if you don't have some of these details.
Right, and that's the biggest unknown. If I could put a big question mark up there, it would be time. We just don't know timing. What I would like to see is that as soon as we have the core team, that that core team immediately starts gathering resources. So the biggest thing that needs to happen is that is like probably going to be the most expensive is the housing. And maybe it won't be. I mean, maybe there's somebody that has housing and wants to offer it for free. But that's, I mean, we absolutely cannot have them come unless we have housing. So that, for me, is going to be, we have the core team. Okay, core team, start right now, even before we do our readiness interview. So we are going to start gathering resources and submit our application at the same time, because there's, you just never know when we might need this for something else. And so we're gonna start that process right away. And then hopefully in the meantime, we will get more answers as far as timing.
So another question I had
Yeah.
is some of the things on this list, like especially the mental health piece, there's such a backlog. Like, it takes forever to get services. There could be a year waiting list for, especially if they need a translator. I mean, would the church not be able to receive a family because we can't get some of these services lined up?
I don't think so. I don't think that, I mean, I can't speak for Samaritans Purse because we haven't spoken about that specifically. But because that is pretty much a nationwide issue, I would imagine that would not be a deal breaker. We do have resources, and that's going to be part of the medical, the team that does the health and the cultural adjustment, is reaching out to find out where those resources are, who's available, who has a little bit of extra time. And I actually received an email from a member of the church who said, hey, I'm doing this kind of stuff, and I specifically work with children that have experienced trauma. Please call me. So things like that are happening, and I suspect that they'll continue to happen, but that is part of what that core team will be doing, is finding it. Like, okay, you're right, there's a backlog, so what are our other avenues? What are the resources that we can look at that maybe we didn't think of before?
Does the church have any members that do speak these languages? That maybe they don't have the time to commit to this, but do you have anybody that...
We have, I believe, 2 that know a little bit, right? Yeah, okay. We have 2 people that have, how would you describe your abilities? I don't want to... Okay. There we go. Yes, and so Travis is, he has some experience, and we have another member here who also has experience with both of those languages. And we received from Samaritans Purse some translation apps that are specific to these languages and for refugees. And so some of them are 24/7 access, some of them aren't. And so those that are working with translation will be trying to figure out how to do this. Like, who do they need to recruit on their team to make sure, or multiple teams to make sure that translation is happening well.
My fear would be if there was some kind of emergency, we wouldn't be able to understand what they needed. We need somebody that could be on call.
Yes, so that's stuff that we're definitely going to have to work out, is how do we do this? How do we make sure that they're being understood and that we're being understood? Because you're absolutely right. We can't just not have access. So hopefully that the translation team, my hope is that they will find apps that everybody that's in contact with the family will have that on my phone. Here it is. Like, now we can at least communicate a little bit in those circumstances when it's needed most. And so we have some room to grow for sure, and things to learn along the way. Yeah, that's where we're at right now.
I'm not really sure how to ask this, so if I'm not clear, I apologize. Keeping the safety of the Lebanon community in the mind, are these families vetted? Like, do we know that they're not members of the Taliban or they're not terrorists? Not saying that, I'm just trying to keep the community safe while helping them.
Yeah, and you are certainly not the first person to ask that question. I don't have a specific answer for you. Like, I can't stand here and say that I know for sure that somebody is or isn't of a mind to do something that might be hurtful to somebody else. However, the families that have been rescued are vetted on the base. So even to come into the United States, they have to have been vetted on the base itself. And to get the EAD, the Employment Authorization Document, is another way of vetting the families and understanding them. That's a big one. And I don't want to speak for the leaders of the church. So I'm only speaking for myself that we will continue to open our doors, and we will continue to open our hearts to the families. And we will pray and earnestly, and we will ask for protection and for us not to be fearful in our interaction with a family. And we will continue to move forward in that area. So I'm just speaking for myself. And if Tom or Dwayne has anything else, okay.
I'm just wondering, aside from the so-called regular Afghanis, do we know of some that have been persecuted for Christianity over there?
The only ones that I'm familiar with would be the stories from this past Sunday, Wes Bentley. The Christians that they have gotten out. But I haven't heard from Samaritans Purse specifically about Christian families. So we know that they are. We just don't know what family we would be receiving. We could receive a family that is Christian and they've been persecuted, or we could be receiving a Muslim family or another of some other faith. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What happens if this turns into a negative experience, like adults choose not to work after they are here?
Well,
Sheri, can you repeat his question?
Can you do you? So what he was asking is, what happens if this turns into a negative experience? And the example is if the adults don't want to work once they're here. I think that's a good question. Well, I think the negative experience can be alleviated a lot by our expectations of the family. So making sure that our expectations are in line with what they can accomplish, and and then making sure that we are willing to love them and work with them as far as as we are allowed to. And if they close off, if they close us off, then that happens. And we have not heard that. I asked about that. That is one question I did ask about negative experiences, and if they are kind of like, no, we don't really want this help, or they come here and they're like, what do you mean a church is helping us? And they said they have not had that experience at all. That all of the families so far have been very thankful, and they have just been so humbled to be here and to be safe and to have a loving community around them to help them. So there haven't been big negative experiences that have been reported. There's little ones like, oh, we didn't do that so well, like the church itself has, not ours specifically, but other churches where they've learned from something and they're like, okay, well, we're not going to do it that way next time. And so those little things to learn from, but I have not heard any big negative experiences. And so more specifically, I think we need to keep our expectations at a level that meets where they are, and we keep our doors open as long as they'd like us to. I hope that answers that question.
I think if I can just add to that real quick, we would, of course, be able to talk to Samaritans Purse and get get coaching from them, right? Yeah.
As of 3 weeks ago, they placed 100 individuals. I don't know what that equals in families. And they had many more waiting, but that was all they were able to place at the time.
The goal is to get them settled and totally on their own.
Yes.
And then we back off. Is that
yes.
it? And then,
yeah.
And then they're on their own.
Yes.
But we avail ourselves, of course, if they need us. Right?
Yeah, this really is it's a selfless ministry. God is very good at returning when there's giving, but that's not always the case. And we walk in this, and we're going to continue to walk forward in blessing, in giving, in loving, even if the family doesn't appreciate the things that are available to them, or even if after the 90 days they decide to move, that's okay. We are here to extend our help, and we are here to, if we are to receive anything, that will come from God Himself. Like Jesus will bless us in the ways that He knows how, and our mission is just to serve. And so it is. There's always that possibility that we may never see this family again after 90 days. But again, I think that that seed will be planted. The love of Christ is going to be there, and that's our mission. That is where we head, and that is always going to have to be our goal. Any other questions?
Are there any expectations of families, like are children expected to go to school, or are they expected to obey the law? Or are there any expectations from us?
That we are responsible for those things? Do you mean, or like that? I would imagine that a family coming into a new country would know that and understand that. However, that's a good question because not every country has the same laws. And so we will, that is a good question to ask Samaritans Purse of how families perceive life here. And then I think part of our responsibility and that'll go up there in the health and cultural adjustment. So those that are doing cultural adjustment, so just kind of throwing this out there, if you are a person that is interested in the cultural adjustment, my guess is that you have a really tender heart because that is going to be a very important area. The people that are doing cultural adjustment have to be extremely open to how somebody is viewing something, how they're coming in. And part of your work is going to actually be finding out what Afghani life is normally like so that we're not taken by surprise when they do this thing and we're used to having it done this way and we're going, what? And so if sending children to school at the age of 4 and 5 is not something that they normally do, then yes, we are responsible to helping them understand the expectations, helping them understand what rules and laws. And no, you can't have, not that they would, but I'm just thinking, this is something we wanted. We wanted chickens in the city, and you can't. So, or you can sort of, I don't know, but there are some things you just can't do in the city. Like you can't have a campfire in the city, but you can have a grill. That is something that they will need to know. And I don't know what the laws are in Afghanistan. So, excellent question. Yes, the cultural adjustment team, boy, they have a great task in front of them and a beautiful task in front of them. Any other questions? Yeah.
What if you don't fit into one of the buckets? Like, could you just be a floater?
Can you be a floater? How about this? If everybody has, or if you don't have it, find one. We have them floating around. This is the sign-up sheet. And there is, kind of halfway, a little more than halfway down, it says special skills. So write in there what your special skill is. Like, what is it that you can offer? And if you have more than one, write down more than one. That's okay. You can put it on the back or something. And that'll help us kind of put you into a team where it makes the most sense. We do want all the volunteers to be in a team, but these teams are fluid as far as they're going to be working with each other. Just because this team is taking care of the medical aspect doesn't mean that that's not going to overflow when they start with benefits. Then they're going to have to start talking to the other core team. But we definitely do want volunteers to be under one core team leader, if that makes sense. So write down your special skill and we'll make sure that you get into the team that makes the most sense for you. Yes?
I guess I see it as the refugees are going to become citizens. Right? We're trying to make them American citizens eventually.
I don't know. They don't have to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that'll be up to them.
This reminds me over in Israel when one gentleman was here. I mentioned they have centers where not refugees, but when the people come in to integrate into Israel, they have a center where they go. And they go through the same system like this. They get educated and learn the language and everything like that. So this kind of reminds me of that.
Okay. Yeah. Jeannie.
I'm very sorry I came late. So if you already answered this, I'm sorry. You can tell me to talk to you later or something. But
okay.
So if we are committing to 90 days, then did you go through what each of these squares is?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, triangles.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Should I ask you later?
Well, how about you ask and we'll go from there.
It is. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So I'll look. someone else has another question.
Do you want to?
This will probably answer my questions then. Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, how about we'll do one more question and then we'll finish up for the evening.
Last chance to use the mic. Anyone? Anyone?
You mentioned earlier that the family gets like around $2,000 or something, a little over.
Mhm.
Is that from Samaritans Purse?
Per person.
Oh, per person in the family? Or
Yes, per person in the family.
Okay,
So if
and
there's a
that's
family of 4, that's
Whatever.
2,000 something times 4.
Yeah, okay. So then they use that to help them get settled somewhere towards rent. And then as a church, as a group, we're responsible for more finances, what they need.
We are to help them utilize those funds appropriately, and I don't mean appropriately as in that they would use them inappropriately,
Right,
but that we have to appropriately use them. It's the church that's responsible to making sure that those funds are used well. We just don't know. I still don't know how to access those funds. That's a question that I've asked, and I'm waiting to hear back. And we don't know how far that will really stretch. And that's not a whole lot when you consider rent and food and all those things. So the church is already committed to financially helping this family, what's above and beyond the money that they received. And the money is coming from the U.S. government, not from Samaritans Purse. Yes. So, okay. I'll hang around for a little bit for any extra questions, but I can close in prayer unless, okay. All right, I'll close. Lord, thanks so much for this time. What a blessing and an honor to be here. I just ask for your wisdom and your vision. This is a big vision, and so may we not get overwhelmed by it. That we'll just take one step at a time faithfully, follow the timeline, and that we just ask for your blessing along the way. I thank you so much for all of the insight and thoughtful questions, and may we be able to answer those along the way. And Lord, as the families are waiting, whether they're Afghan families or whether they're from another part of the world, Lord, may you keep them, hold them tightly, provide safety wherever they are, and provide a path towards refuge. Lord, I'm so thankful that we are a church that has so many resources that we can be there to serve, and may we serve well. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, thank you. If you already filled out your sign up, please hand it in to me tonight. If you want to think about it, scan it, print it, or well, not print it, scan it or take a picture of it and send it to me. That's the easiest way to get it to me. My name, number, and email address are on the form.